Hello and welcome to the Street Crime UK YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Today we look at an organised crime group known to drug users in Blackpool as Scousemaker, and were responsible for 18,000 separate deals in less than 6 months. Members of the gang were responsible for supplying heroin and crack cocaine within Blackpool. The gang was brought down by Operation Kaleidoscope, which ran from August to December 2015. In less than 6 months, Lancashire police were able to work out how Scousemaker supplied their customers through the use of a single main telephone number that users would associate with the group and call to order drugs. During the course of the operation, the mobile phone spent the vast majority of its time in Liverpool. After placing an order for drugs through the Macker number, the buyer would be redirected to a location to meet with the runner, who would then supply them with the drugs. A conservative estimate cited during the sentencing proceeds was that the gang carried out 18,000 deals during the 144-day operation, with the Macker phone receiving an average of 357 calls a day to buy drugs. So, how did it work? Main gang member John Paul Hodson was the controller of the person in possession of the Macker phone. He was jailed for 9 years. The investigation also showed that Trevor Pollard was the right-hand man of Mr. Hodson and the courier of drugs and cash between Liverpool and Blackpool, and that at times he would be in possession of the Macker phone. Trevor Pollard was given 8 years plus another year for offences under the Proceeds of Crime Act. The Macker phone would accept and make enormously high volume of phone calls throughout each day. The process the gang would use is that the Macker phone would receive phone calls from customers ordering drugs, and a call would then be made to the gang's middleman based in Blackpool. The middleman would then contact a runner, who in turn would meet with the customer and deal drugs to them in return for cash. The operation identified that control of the runners in the Blackpool area was facilitated by a middleman. This middleman was Ben Fraser, who originated from the Merseyside area. Ben Fraser would sit off at various addresses and direct runners either via telephone or in person from the address he was occupying. The gang used numerous runners, mainly locals, and on occasion the runners would use drivers to transport them around so they could meet their customers. The operation also identified that the gang used a safe house in Cheltenham Road, Blackpool. This was a home address of Terence Pollard. The cash was collected and stored here, and when the drugs were brought over from Liverpool by Mr. Hodson and Trevor Pollard, they would initially be stored here. Ben Fraser was seen to visit the address regularly to drop off cash and restock with drugs that he would then pass on to the runner to supply. How was the gang brought down? The operation concluded on December the 16th, 2015, with numerous search warrants being conducted in Lancashire and Liverpool. At the home address of Mr. Hodson, some 308 individual wraps of heroin was recovered, along with cash, phones and other items. These drugs were packaged into street deals and were ready to be taken back to Blackpool, where the gang would have supplied them onto our streets in Blackpool. 16 people were charged with conspiring together to supply crack cocaine and heroin in Blackpool between the August 1st, 2015 to December the 16th, 2015. 11 of those pleaded guilty at Preston Crown Court and 5 pleaded not guilty. The trial went ahead in February at Preston Crown Court and lasted for 4 weeks. 4 out of the 5 defendants were convicted of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. "We are coming to get you," Detective Chief Inspector Becky Smith of Blackpool CID said, "I am really pleased with the sentences which follow a long and complex investigation into this gang and its activities. This operation has dismantled a gang responsible for the supply of hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of Class A drugs, namely heroin and crack cocaine, into Blackpool. Their activities brought misery to those addicted to drugs and their loved ones. That these people have now been removed from our neighbourhoods is down to determination and professionalism of the staff of the Lancashire Constabulary in pursuing and bringing to justice organised criminals who blight our community. Whilst this investigation refers to the activity over a 12-month period, this remains a real priority for both of us and our partners who are working closely together to tackle organised criminality. I ask the public for their continued support in reporting information so that we can continue to keep our neighbourhoods safe and free from the activities of these gangs. Lastly, my message to those engaged in this sort of criminal behaviour is that we will not tolerate it in Lancashire, and if you are involved in that type of activity, we will find you and put you before the courts. Clive Grunshaw, Lancashire's Police and Crime Commissioner, said, "This is a great example of the excellent work being done by Lancashire officers to keep drugs off our streets and out of our communities. These people were responsible for bringing a huge supply of Class A drugs into the Blackpool area. This operation has led to 15 dangerous drug dealers being locked up for a total of 66 years. I hope this sends a clear message to those who are getting involved in the drug crime that the police have the resources, skills and determination to crack organisations like this and bring their members to justice. The public should be reassured that this type of high-level investigation work is taking place. While it is not always visible, it is happening and achieving real results like those we have seen in court. I want to pay tribute to the hard work and determination of Lancashire investigators that have helped bring down this ring of dealers. The sentences that were handed down. John Paul Hodson, 32, of Marmion Avenue, Liverpool, was heard of the Scousemaker gang. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was jailed for 9 years. Antonia Coughlin, 31, of Marmion Avenue, Liverpool, was Mr. Hodson's partner. She pleaded guilty to allowing premises to be used for the supply of heroin and crack cocaine and was given a 20-month suspended sentence. Trevor Pollard, 34, last known address as Butley Road, Liverpool, was a principal gang member. Trevor pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and proceeds of the Crime Act offences and was sentenced to 8 years plus 1 year to be served consecutively. Ben Fraser, 34, last known address as Bishop Road, Liverpool, was the gang's middleman in Blackpool. Ben pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was given 7 years. Terence Pollard, 61, was the owner of the Cheltenham Road safe house. He was convicted of conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was given 7.5 years. Ryan Jones, 20, last known address as Bolton Road, West Houghton, was one of the gang's runners. Ryan pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was sentenced to 4 years and 4 months. Stuart Pothecary, 35, last known address of Boscombe Road, Blackpool, was another of the gang's runners. Stewart was convicted of conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months. George Finlay, 36, formerly of Cookson Street, Blackpool, was also a runner. He was convicted of conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was given 4 years and 6 months. Christopher Arundale, 36, last known address as Fisher Street, Blackpool, was part of the runner network. Christopher pleaded guilty to supplying heroin and crack cocaine and was sentenced to 30 months. Alan Sprague, 36, last known address as Knoll Avenue, Blackpool, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin as one of the gang's runners. Alan was given 2 years and 11 months. Daniel Sampson, 20, last known address as Osborne Road, Blackpool, was also a runner for the gang. Daniel was convicted of conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was sentenced to 3 years and 10 months. Susan Yates, 47, last known address as Foxhall Road, Blackpool, was also a runner. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine. Susan failed to appear and a warrant issued for her arrest. Stephen Duxbury, 31, last known address as McCormick Avenue, St Helens, was also a runner. Stephen pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine and was given 3 years and 2 months. Martin Corallo, 29, last known address of Cheltenham Road, Blackpool, was a driver for the gang. Martin was sentenced to 2 years, having pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin and crack cocaine. Wayne Bromley, 31, last known address of King Edward Avenue, Blackpool, was the other driver. Wayne pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of heroin and crack cocaine and was given 5 years and 8 months. So what are your thoughts about this Blackpool-based drugs gang and how they used a mobile phone to receive thousands of text requests to purchase Class A and Class B drugs? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.